All right. Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:33 p.m. If we'll all stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Got it? Yeah, thank you.
Got ahead of me. I got ahead.
All right. And Mrs. Sandoval, roll call, please, when you're ready.
Dr. Garyer-Shambo?
Here.
Ms. Daly?
Here.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Here.
Mrs. Lee?
Present. We do have a quorum. Adoption of agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda, and if so, what?
I need to make some changes. In talking and taking advice with Joel Guillen, the president of the New Mexico State Board Association, I moved to strike action item A, board reorganization and considering of officers, president, vice president, secretary from the agenda. I asked why there was a request for that. We didn't get a request as to who turned it in. When speaking with Joe, about the CC policies, he says that reorganization, as it is typical for a board to reorganize in the middle, is not typical to reorganize in the middle of the year. Joe indicated that Joe indicated that yes, boards can reorganize, but is not typical unless there's a clear reason, like a board member has not been attending meetings, a board member has not been following policy law, has been in an accident, unable to fulfill their duties. Joe recommended striking the action from the item from the agenda if there was not a request from any reason provided or for why there should be a reorganization, there was not any reason given. Joe said that it is good practice to reorganize for no reason. It is not good practice to reorganize for no reason. If the board members don't like each other for other reason, if the policy and law procedures have always been followed, the Attorney General would question to why the function on the board reorganized in mid-year. And then he emailed me some examples. The officer of any member of the school board misses 4 consecutive meetings. A member of the school board misses 6 consecutive meetings, or a vacancy as for an accident or something happens and we don't have a school board, or just misconduct or whatever is what he had said.
So to clarify, if I may, you are,
Well, I had asked to table it, but he said to strike it.
okay,
Because it's not a table item, it's pretty much a clear policy. As,
Okay,
you know,
so
you can
you're-
go mid-year, but it has to be any of these 4, they missed 6 meetings, you weren't, or, you know, malice. You know,
So
there has
it
to be a
would
good
be-
reason to restructure during mid-year. And he also said that restructuring is on odd year. Then he sent me another email here saying, organizational meeting of election are held on the first Tuesday in February of each odd number years. Members shall take the oath of office and reorganize, therefore, you do the reorganization. So we can ask for reorganization on an odd year. I'm not saying that we can't ask for a but it has to be an odd year. And this is an even year, but we restructured for some reason because there was an election according to what he said.
okay. Are there any other changes? I do have changes, but I'll ask the other board members if there's any other change to the agenda. In item B, in presentations, the word amendments should actually be agreements. So it would be changed from GCCS Staff Union Collective bargaining amendments to actually reading GCCS staff union collective bargaining agreements. The next item, this will be removal of item F in presentations. The GCCS student handbook updated revisions for 24-25 school year has not been completed, so there's no way to present for review. So that would also mean action item. I apologize for not having that written out.
ABC?
No.
Oh, H,
Yes,
yeah.
H. Yes, thank you, Mr. Ortiz. So we would also need to remove action item
Presentation.
H. The presentation is item F. And then the action item is H that would need to be removed. Lastly, I would like to table presentation G, items 1 and 2, and presentation H, item number 1. And the reason for tabling those is that, and we have been talking as of late about following proper chain of command and our policies. In our Grant-Cibola County School Policy G-1681, GBJE, under personnel records and files, it says that the superintendent or designee shall be entitled to ask persons seeking disclosure of personnel records to provide reasonable justification for such disclosure. And the ask for this was just asking for the information. It did not ask as to why. This is public information. However, we are to follow policy in asking for the justification in that. And perhaps I said the wrong numbers on that. So we would table, forgive me, I didn't look at those numbers. I just had it written down G and H, and I apologize for not being specific. So it would be in G, number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. And I'm asking to table those, not strike, table. And then we would also be tabling, and again, my apology for not listing everything, in presentations, H, items 1 and 2. And again, that is following the proper chain of command and needing to provide reasonable justification for such disclosure. So I would wager that we will have that on a future agenda pending the proper written request justifying the disclosure of that information. So I'm gonna summarize this so we know what has been said. We are asking, Mr. Jaramillo is asking to strike action item A for the reasons he stated. Item B in presentations should be changed to read collective bargaining agreements, not amendments, thank you. Removal of item F in presentations because the GCCS student handbook update has not yet been fully completed. And the related action item H about that handbook, because obviously if we can't have the presentation and it's not completed, we can't vote on it. And then tabling presentation G 1 through 4 and presentation H 1 through 2. And before you do that, I'm going to ask Mr. Widener if there is a recommendation. Oh, is there anything further to be amended on the agenda, board members? All right, Mr. Widener, is there a recommendation for approval of the agenda as amended?
I recommend that you approve the agenda as amended.
All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended, striking action item A? Strike, I have to ask for the motion first and then we can have discussion, okay?
It's not discussion. I had an agenda item that I wanted to be postponed.
Oh, thank you. No, yes, ma'am. We haven't gotten a motion, so we could do that. Yes, ma'am. What would you like postponed?
The presentation B, Sharp Business Systems Technology Proposal, Sharp Business. I don't believe we have enough information provided to us to warrant outsourcing this contract. So I would like to have more input from not just, from also IT.
That would be Mr. Triplehorn.
And the actual IT program. All we got provided was what services they were going to provide. I would like to know why are we outsourcing this price, this program or?
So let me just clarify, ma'am, if I may. We can still, you're all right getting our presentation for this meeting. No, the presentation portion right now that has been, I'm just asking, get the presentation this evening done that is ready, but not have action item? Or you do not even want to hear the presentation?
I went to the table and I was giving you my reasons why. Because I just don't think, I was looking over the proposal, they did not provide adequate information or justification why we're outsourcing these services that are being provided currently right now by our IT program. Just presenting us with a proposal doesn't give me understanding why are we doing it.
Okay, but the presentation will cover a lot of that information. I believe that if we table the action item, then we would have the opportunity, much like with the physics in the box. Remember how we heard the first presentation and then we did not have the action item? The action item did not go and we had follow-up presentations. Would that make sense to you, ma'am, to hear the presentation that's been prepared for tonight, table the action item? So then you in writing can request that there's more information coming from IT to specify those questions that you have. Does that make sense?
No, because I still think that we don't need to hear it until we get proper information in order even to have it presented to us, because we don't have any other businesses that might have the same caliber
Okay, I'm hearing you and I'll ask for a motion on that amendment as well, and then we'll be able to have discussion about that. So you're asking to table the Sharp presentation and action item.
And do I still have to put it in writing?
Yes, ma'am. That would be very helpful to, and you would submit that to Mr. Widener, please. Okay, here we go again. So, Mr. Widener, I'm gonna ask you again after I read everything again, okay, sir? So we're looking to amend the agenda, striking action item A. In item B in presentations, we will change the word amendments to agreements. We will remove item F in presentations as it is not ready, and the action item corresponding, which is action item H. We will remove that until that is ready. We will table presentation G 1 through 4. We will table presentation H 1 and 2. We will table presentation item D. And action item, what did you say it was? E. And action E. Thank you very much for all of that. I think we have it now. So, anything further to be amended on the agenda, board members?
Okay, I have a question. Letter E under presentation, why are we tabling that? They're not ready? And the reason.
We are not tabling E. E is not tabled.
That's what I.
It was action item E. All right, board members, anything further to be amended? Okay, Mr. Widener. Do
I
you,
recommend to approve the agenda as amended.
all right, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? And I can help read those if anybody would like to make a motion.
Yeah, Robert Rules of Order here. Question, under action item, A, just when we vote on that, are you saying that we're approving to strike the, action item A as well?
Yes, I did, that was the first item,
Okay, well,
and there will be able to be discussion. So right now, I'm asking for a motion to approve the agenda item, the agenda as amended, striking action item A, changing the word in item B in presentations, amendments to agreements, removal of item F in presentations about the student handbook, and the action item H, which it corresponds with, tabling presentation G 1, 2, 3, and 4, tabling presentation H 1 and 2, tabling presentation D, and the action item corresponding E. Mr. Widener has recommended approving as amended.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
And a second. I will second. It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by President Lee to approve the agenda as amended. Is there any further discussion?
Okay, I have some discussion on the, I already stated my reason for sharp decline to that. The HR report, that is a directory listing. It's not confidential, it doesn't release any work, or personal record that, it can be done simply by producing a directory listing. These are all directory, and you can show that in our, I guess, website, you could list that too. But I
No,
just-
this is just
And I was never asked for a reason why I wanted this report.
Correct, ma'am. We did not know until today that we had a GCCS policy. And Ms. Hunt Daly, I agree with you. It is public information. IPRA does allow for that information to be shared. However, the policy that I stated regarding personnel matters, and I'll tell you that number again. Okay, that states that any person seeking disclosure of personnel records provide reasonable justification for such disclosure. So we're only asking to table that so that the proper reasonable justification for such disclosure can be submitted to the superintendent. That is why that is happening.
Okay, and further discussion under facilities report, if I'm correct, at the last board meeting or meeting before, Mr. Triplehorn had already started giving, or gave us a report about the ongoing projects, and that, at that time, I asked if we could have a listing, an actual report, written report. And he said that he had all in his brain, and unfortunately, we can't pick his brain to find out, exactly numbers and manpower and start dates and end dates and whatever. That it was already being attempted to be given. I was just asking for a written report, and which I have not received. Number two, the list of E-rates. Gosh, maybe 3 or 4 meetings ago, I can't remember, it was Mr. Triplehorn and Mr. Maldonado did report that they had a $300,000 reimbursement on the E-rate. And so, really with no justification or understanding of the actual expenditures that were done in 23-24, any payments made to E-rate Central, and of course, the $300,000 report or reimbursement that I believe it was Mr. Maldonado did inform the board, okay? And at that time, there was really no explanation as to what it was. It was what we were all entitled to, what were the actual expenditures, did we lose some money on all of that was information that was not provided. That's all I was asking for, was just the information on the report that he gave, the $300,000. And still have not received that as well. Okay, do I need to justify my A on it, or do you want it written?
On the,
Action item A, the reorganization.
according to the president of the New Mexico School Board, whom Mr. Jaramillo spoke with and received emails, yes, there must be a written submission as to why it would be necessary.
And so if I provide you written, then who decides whether it's necessary or not? The
Well,
board
there's
or-
there's examples here. I mean, I can get them to you. There's missing missing meetings. I mean, he just says there's just everything but, the way, you can't have real reason just because the way we look or what we say. There has to be a violation as to being a member, any of us.
As
Of our-
an elected official.
Right, and then he says it's not very good to do it in the middle of the year, you do it, he said there's specifics there, you do it on odd years, or if there's after the election, if there's a vacancy, then you do it, he says you can't, I had the impression you could do it whenever, but he said no, that you can't, you have to have cause, and it has to be within the rules of a violation. Cause there is room to do it, but if an attorney, if a judge would see it, he would want a cause, a good reason. If it did go to court, or if the attorney general got involved. And the attorney general probably would, cause it's a mid-year reorganization, and if something didn't happen to any, and the important ones he told me are the secretary and the president. He says those are the ones that usually would be doing malice or reason for removal or.
Okay, so that's further tell me who decides whether it's substantial. You're talking about the AG, you're talking about an attorney, so who decides what's essential for our board?
He said to strike it, it's not even something that can come up for discussion, it's
But
it's written down.
she's asking for further, if board member Hunt Daly chooses to submit the request for reorganization and her reasoning, she's asking who then would determine whether that's a justified ask or not. And I would wager that's a really good question for Mr. Guillen as the school board, the NMSBA president. Yes, sir.
The policy, there is a certain relationship that Mr. Guillen is, the Mexico School Board Association. That organization, through its organization, they offer us the policy management, and we see that on the, and I'm looking at it right now.
Correct.
He pulled up
It's a
ours,
very
when I was talking
valuable-
to him, he pulled up ours.
It's a very valuable service.
He pulled up everything we had.
Yeah, and so as I look at this, what I see is board organizational meeting. And that's your, so I'm
Correct.
looking at that same thing. And it's the policy that we're familiar with when it comes to voting. The other policy associated with that is the board officers, president, secretary, vice president, secretary, and so forth. And I'm trying to find the section that says when we're to do that. And I haven't found it yet.
He emailed me that.
Okay. Thanks for coming.
He pulled up our policies, he read them to me, he emailed me our policies.
This says section C, the organizational meeting elections are held on the first Tuesday in February of each odd-numbered year. Shall take the oath of office on March 1, or the first meeting of the board in the month of March. And we did ours in January. Okay. And
Correct.
that's typically what we've done in the past, am I correct,
Correct.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Okay, so, and I think that's probably what we all understand, is that we would do it in, I'm not sure why it says March, but I'm not, that's good. The meeting shall be called to order, et cetera. And then the process that we went through, in January is what it describes here, okay? Whenever there's a vacancy in a board office, the board shall elect a new office to fill the vacancy during the next phase. And that's good understanding. I don't find the section where he describes a prohibition of doing it at any other time. Is there another?
He sent me these violations. Those are some of the violations that you could
He-
file against the secretary or the president. He said the vice president really doesn't have much to do with a lot of the paperwork, paper trail as a board. The secretary and the president are ones that have a lot to do with a lot of the paper trails.
So you, to clarify, you spoke
Well, when I
and
told
have,
him, I called Ron and I asked him, and Ron said, oh, we've done it all the time. He said, well, luckily they didn't catch it, because most of the time, there's a and we don't even have the policy in place. Other schools have new members come in, they start at the bottom, then you have the secretary goes to vice president goes, there's a chain that goes on. We're the only school board that doesn't have a policy in place as to how the board is supposed to act when you get new members that come in. There's other schools that have, if you're the vice president, next round, you're the vice president. You start off your first year a member, you come in fresh, you're a member. Then you stay there, then you move up, but he was just explaining to me of different policies that we have in place. He says a bunch of our policies, we need to sit down and revisit a lot of them. Not only this one, but there's a whole bunch that he's been getting calls about.
Most of the policies are identical between school boards. And so and having had the experience of looking at many different school districts from Santa Fe to Las Cruces, not Las Cruces, only a few districts declined to participate in, such as APS, Las Cruces, and maybe Santa Fe. Most of the others do buy into the service because it makes us more efficient. It makes the state more efficient with the school boards. They can have uniform policies that are based upon statute and legislation. And so therefore, this policy service was meant to assist probably the vast majority of the school boards. And so if you were to look at our board organizational meeting policy with respect with others, they would be virtually identical. So what we're trying to do, I think, is to make sure we understand what is available to us. Am I correct? Trying to determine what is there anything else we need to state in our particular policy that will help us in this decision? So that's a good point. All I'm saying to you, Madam President and Mr. Vice President, is that we don't have any language to that effect, except
but we also do not have any language to the effect that
of any
we
other-
can call for reorganization at any
I
time.
don't, and at this point, I don't see that either, okay?
So that was, it's sounding to me that was part of why Mr. Guillen recommended that we strike that
He didn't.
action item because
It needs work.
neither did we have policy to support reorganizing in the middle of the year, nor did we have policy stating how to go about doing that in the middle of the year. So he recommended striking the action
And
item
then
from this
revisit
agenda and revisiting
the whole policy.
the policies and then having policy in place allowing for the reorganization.
Well, when I told him that this has been done before, he was surprised. He says, you just can't go to every meeting and just reorganize every meeting.
We've been blessed with that experience.
Well, I've done other government stuff, as Ron would know. The city has a charter, there's different rules, so I have stuff to look at. I need a policy. And I don't know, and Francine has known that is, I said, what is the policy on this? Cause that's how we run.
Right.
We don't make up our own policies. We're not dictators. We have policies in place. We have to follow them. And if we don't like them, we do them together, not one person makes up the policy. We do it together as a whole.
Correct.
We're only a board as we're sitting here. I'm not a board member when I'm gone at the end of the day. We're only a board here. We only make policy here together and we decide together. And we follow it together. We don't, one person shouldn't decide what to do. We should follow policy and make policy.
I don't have any other,
Thank you.
anything else. I was just trying to,
Clarify.
yeah, get clarity from myself based upon our experience and say, whoa, wait a minute, let's check. And at this point, I don't have, and I don't wanna spend more time on it. Basically, let's move ahead and, we can explore this,
We need to.
more carefully and
I
see what
agree.
is our, what is
What
the
policy we
flexibility or
can-
no flexibility with respect to that, and if it's.
Well, and I concur.
Okay,
Thank you, sir, very much.
Yeah,
Is there any further discussion?
Yes, no, I don't wanna prolong this, but I was given the idea that if I wrote, statement, why I would call for a reorg, that it would be heard. And now I'm saying that he's telling me that I don't have to write it now, that we'll discuss it at a later date, or what are you telling me as a board member? That's number one. Number two, and I wholeheartedly agree with the fact that we are one board, we are one entity. However, I brought that up too at the last special meeting when a complaint was filed against one of our board members, which I chose to feel that that was a complaint then directed at all of us. Because as you say, we are one entity, and we voted not to hear it. And still yet we heard it, and then we went to the suggestion of mediation. So are we following the board as an entity, or are we following it as an individual?
So, Ms. Hunt Daly, if I may address the portion where you said that we voted to not hear it. That is inaccurate. We voted to not
Higher.
investigate it. So that's very, very different, just to clarify. And so that was a board decision. And then there was a follow-up to that as to how the board voted to proceed, which is what the board voted to do. So can you clarify for me what your question is regarding what you said you asked?
If I provided a written statement, that's why I believe that we needed a reorganization, that would be acceptable. And,
But you just asked for the reorganization. You didn't state reasonable justification as to why there should be a reorganization.
and at that time, I was not told that I had to provide justification. In the past, just as Dr. Shambo has said, we've never had it done. And I really caution us to start listening to somebody else tell us what we need to strike and stuff. Because like you said, this is our board. We make those decisions on the.
Yes, ma'am, but we have to
And please
follow
don't-
OMA.
okay, please don't interrupt me. You can tell me afterwards. This is what, some of the reasons why is we're constantly interrupted, not just by you, by others, by the attorneys. As a board member, we have a right to state our opinion. And yet at every turn, we're either chastised for doing it or not listened to or overlooked. And so we're getting to the point where this is why my reasons were never asked for at the time I asked for a reorg. Now I know that I'm supposed to write a written statement. Okay, so I will do that, but now I'm being told that even a written statement is not going to justify asking for a reorg. I remember at the last, when we did the reorg, when you two first came on board, it was asked, when do we do a reorg? And we were to, we could do a reorg anytime. Okay, where that opinion came from, I don't know, but somehow in the past year, I've been on the board for 12 years, going on 13, and we've never ever done that. Or even access NSBA as to how we should run our organization. Every district has different policies, and it's detailed to their own, how they run their own organization. And a lot of this is now we're having to look at different districts and see how they run it. When Grant Cibolo County Schools has always run it according to what is the needs of the community, what are the needs of the staff, what are the needs of the students, preferably, and most importantly, the students. And so now,
So
I
what,
am so confused, I don't even know what coming or going anywhere. Do I write a statement? I don't know. Do I justify it with cause? I don't know. Do I send it to Joe Guillen to see if he approves of my discussion item or my reorg? I don't know. So please, either make a decision so we can move on, and I'll take my opinions and keep them to myself, because I really don't even know what we're doing anymore. That is my problem. It's the way things are going.
well, Emily, I'm new at
Hold
this,
on.
I'm not a,
Hold on, sir. Is there anything further, Ms. Hunt Daly?
No, unless I'm being told to do something.
Okay, is there any further discussion? There has been a motion made by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by President Lee to approve the agenda as amended. Further discussion? Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval.
Dr. Shambo,
Yes.
Ms. Hunt Daly,
No.
Mr. Jaramillo,
yes.
Mr. Ortiz,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Aye, the motion carries. Adoption of minutes. The first one will be June 4th, 2024. Are there any amendments to the minutes? If so, what? Superintendent Widener, is there a recommendation for approval of the minutes as presented for June 4th, 2024?
I recommend to approve the minutes as presented for June 4th, 2024.
Thank you. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes of June 4th, 2024?
To approve the minutes of June 4th.
Thank you. And is there a second, please?
Second?
Thank you, sir. It has been moved by Mr. Ortiz and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to approve the minutes as presented for June 4th, 2024. Is there any need for discussion? Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Shambo,
Yes.
Ms. Hunt Daly,
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo,
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Aye, the motion carries. June 4th, June 11th, 2024 minutes. Are there any amendments to the minutes as presented?
I make the motion to approve the minutes of June 11th, 2024.
Were there any amendments first? Board members, any amendments? All right, now as presented, sir. Thank you.
I make the motion to approve the minutes of June 11th, 2024.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Mr. Ortiz to approve the minutes as presented of June 11th, 2024. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Sandoval, roll call vote. Oh,
I'm sorry, I was looking at the action items for that meeting. I know when we were looking at the school board meeting schedule, I had recommended that we, hold meetings at different sites. Plus the reason that each site we have had no meetings all year for these. And, the action item should also include that we,
we've already approved that, though.
oh, if you will, it doesn't say so in the minutes then. that we
I will make note of that, and ma'am, I do have note of that you would like that to be revisited when we're scheduling for the entire year coming up. So that has been noted, ma'am. But we did accept those minutes already. We did have an action item to approve those. And it did carry. So now we are on the June 11th one. And we were already at roll call.
I don't have any minutes.
Thank you, sir. I'll see if Ms. Hunt Daly, give her a
I
minute.
didn't realize this was your own. I'm sorry, this wasn't
No, that's okay.
what I received from the email.
Yes, that's good. It's just a little bit.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, so once again, it has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Mr. Ortiz to approve the minutes of June 11th, 2024 as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, we shall proceed
Drag that out a little bit.
to a roll call vote, Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Shambo?
Yes.
Mrs. Hunt Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, the motion carries. And now finally, the good part of the board meeting, recognitions. Mr. Widener.
All right, we are at our mid-month meeting, and so we regularly this year, we have recognized our SEL plaque recipients, and we've recognized our Edu Champion. And so I'm gonna start with our SEL plaques. And let me make sure I get that right. Okay, tonight we're going to recognize somebody with an SEL plaque. As you know, this is social emotional love. They build people up, they build students up, they build people up in their departments. And tonight we're recognizing our coordinator of transportation. She is being recognized. She was one of the bus drivers. Stopped me one day. I went to get my car fixed, and I was over there the other day, and I was pulling out, one of the bus drivers stopped me and she said, you know, Edwina Henneman is amazing, and we are so glad to have her, and she does for us and she supports us. And she said, Mr. Widener, thank you for sending her to transportation. So Edwina, tonight we are recognizing you as our SEL person. Thank you. And with it being the summer and so many of our folks on vacation and away, I was kind of looking at who was here and who needed to be recognized. And so I selected the second recipient tonight. she's an outstanding individual who works long hours. She works until the job is done. She works crunching numbers, looking at data, looking at children's addresses, looking at children's student ID numbers. She does all of that reporting, helps us to get our funding for our membership and our units. And she works with Synergy, she works with Nova, she works with the New Mexico PED, and she is an outstanding STARS data reporting coordinator. And so I want to recognize Rose Greengrich as the SEL. Congratulations. They get worried when I tell them they have to come to the board meeting.
Have to bring a report.
And then I got the Edu Champion belt, and I got a really great recommendation on who should be the next Edu Champion. And it was kind of anonymous, but it came to me and it said that they want to recognize this person because they are always running, they're always doing, they're always working. They work for the district, they work for central office, they work for the school board. And they're making sure that everything is lined out, it's prepared, we have good minutes, we have accurate minutes, we have good agendas. And I have thoroughly loved working with this individual this year. She's an amazing individual. She works very hard and she does it with a smile. And this month's Edu Champion belt recipient is Lorraine Sandoval. You knocked her in the head? Are you?
Yep, it's all right. With the belt on.
It even matches her outfit.
Matches the color.
Perfect.
That's snuck up on you, didn't it?
Very nice.
You gonna flex?
I love it.
Let's take a picture together.
Yes.
And we matched tonight.
We do.
We didn't plan that.
You got the green memo.
Yes, yes. GCCS green. And finally, we have one more group that we want to recognize, and I will get certificates prepared for them and all of their teams. I want to recognize the gentleman who helped make the GHS JOLT program a success. In the past, we had a history of having a JOLT program. It stands for Junior Officer Leadership Training. And it went by the wayside for about 8 years. And these gentlemen did an outstanding job working to bring this program back. And so I want to invite them up to come talk about their program. But it's my pleasure to, and I should mention, Fire Chief Mike Mays was instrumental in helping, but I want to recognize Officer Joe Galindo and Officer Josh Pacheco. Deputy Josh. I know they have different titles than that. You guys will have to tell.
It's lieutenant, but no big deal.
Congratulations, guys. I will have certificates for you, and if I need to do them for the chief or the sheriff, let me know and we'll do that as well. But I would like for you to tell the board a little bit about JOLT, and really neat, they graduated 16 kids? 17. And so, let me let you guys talk.
So, I mean, we could have done this, we'll give recognition to Principal Elkins, Assistant Principal Morales, Assistant Principal Jaramillo. They brought us in on board and said, hey, we have funding, thanks to you guys, right, to be able to do this. For Joel, not gonna lie, Lieutenant Saraceno and I, when we met with Chief, she's like, we're gonna do this. It's like, Chief, we have so much on our plate. And I'm glad she pushed us through to go forward with it. We met with Deputy Pacheco. We're like, hey, this is what we're gonna do. We'll take care of the curriculum. He's a physical fitness fanatic. I was like, you plan everything for physical fitness. He got his instructor through general police instructor. He helped us instruct. He's awesome. He's gonna be one of your teachers soon. He's gonna be awesome. He did a good job with us on that. We did the instructing part of it. 37 kids is the number we got, right, that were signed up. 20 showed up, 21? We ended up with 17. This group of kids was amazing. I mean, from the beginning, doing the physical part of it, we gave them the standard police testing for physical assessment to see where they were at, just to see what they could do, show them what they could, accomplish. Thursday, they did what, 5 days of PT? 5 days of full PT, yeah. They all improved. They all excelled. They kept going. I mean, just the drive these kids had. We weren't looking for those overachievers. I mean, there was just effort. Everybody put forward effort, and it was great to see that. I saw a big difference. Mr. Ontiveros brought us in one day, Chief Lieutenant Cercino and I, to teach his kids what it takes to be a police officer. Well, we're in a classroom the whole day. These kids, the interest level wasn't there, right? It was like, these guys are in class, what are they talking about? These kids wanted to be here. And you could see the genuine interest, and it felt better to be able to teach them something that they could take as life skills, not just to be a police officer. If they saw interest in what we do, great, apply, we're hiring, right? You can get the dream job now, to be a cop, you go anywhere you wanna go with it. But they learn life skills, CPR, right? Minor first aid, they learn to stop the bleed. One of the important things, and I hate that we have to teach it in the schools, is we did the citizen response to active shooter. And we put them to the test, right?
Yeah, so with that response to active shooter, at the end of the program, we brought them in. We put them through a scenario-based training where they were unaware of the situation, brought them in, and we put them through a situation where they thought that they possibly could have been in an active shooter situation. They reacted phenomenally. They went right back to the training that they went through just within the 2 weeks that they were with us, reacted correctly, did the correct things all the way from the start to the beginning. First, it's a shocking situation. They fell right into that training, and they did a great job. And I think that really shows these group of kids, they might not have been, the kids that may have been even interested in police work from the start, but by the end of it, there's a completely different set of kids when it came to understanding what our role is, understanding what any first responder's role is. And that's what it is, junior officer leadership training, it's a leadership training program. And if they can come in and learn those skills and learn those things that they need to do to be leaders in our community, that's the goal, right? That's what we want to do, is make sure that they understand what we're doing and what they can do out there to help in their communities as well.
And the big takeaway, I could say, like for us as law enforcement officers, is humanizing the badge, not just seeing this and being, oh, great, they're here to get me, right? We talk to these kids like we do normally out and about, just, letting them see that we're humans behind this badge, just regular people, that we can be funny, we're not robotic. I mean, there's some of us, you'll see that they walk around like this. No, you gotta have that rapport with these kids. I think we accomplished that with this group of kids. Some were asking if we're gonna do it next year.
Yeah.
We talked about that, and that's something we wanna keep being able to bring to these kids. We wanna make it bigger and better. We want them to see a little bit of every agency that's in this area that could be brought. State police, K-9, corrections, tribal, BLM, federal, the district attorney's office, because they can see the standpoint from like prosecution and everything on that. But I mean, we wouldn't be able to do this without your guys' cooperation and funding with that. It's a great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any citizens to address the board this evening?
No, ma'am.
Presentations, Mr. Widener.
So our first presentation is the fixed assets inventory report. We have to have a list of our fixed assets. We send it to the public education department, and we have to approve it, right? And so through the months of April and May, this spring, we had a complete count of our fixed assets. Fixed assets are items that have a value of $5,000 or more. So that includes like the district vehicles, the school buses, the screens that we have purchased. And so anything that's over $5,000, there in your packets is the list of fixed assets that the district has. We'll have an action item in a little bit, and I will recommend that we approve the list of fixed assets so we can submit it to the PED.
Thank you. And then B, are there any questions for Mr. Widener about the fixed assets list?
Yes. So does it like show the depreciation of the asset or just showing that we have them?
So the fixed asset amount is reflected on our balance sheet in the audit. So every year, we account for those items that are $5,000 or, but actually we account for every item that we purchase that's $500 or more. Even our Chromebooks, which are about $250, we account for everything. But the threshold for fixed assets to be recognized on the balance sheet is $5,000. So we assign the original value, then we run the depreciation schedule, we run that through our auditor, and that's what he reviews and posts on the balance sheet, so that when we get our final audit, it accurately reflects the value of non-building and non-structures that are held at the district. Did I answer your
At a
question?
depreciation value though.
Correct. We had a company come in and did a complete count. We ordinarily, we don't have to do a complete count every year, but we hadn't done one in about 3 years and it wasn't kept up very well. So and especially with the fiasco with the Chromebooks, we wanted to get a better accurate count. So every year, we add to the fixed assets just by using the purchase orders that we run throughout that year and what qualifies for inclusion into the fixed asset list, including construction in progress and other things like that. And that's what goes in and we update that. And so it's usually a pro forma type of activity that we do just to update that on a regular basis. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and when you make reference to the absence of Chromebooks, can you elaborate on that?
Of course. So we had a policy a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, maybe 4 now, with 2020, that we were supposed to keep an accurate count of the distribution of Chromebooks to the students. That process was supposed to have been first gone through a tagging and listing process through the technology department and then distributed to the school sites who were then supposed to list that item into Destiny program, just like a library book, and then check it out to a student and then have a record of which student had which identifiable particular instrument based on the tag. Well, that didn't happen. Technology did not follow the process at all. They did their own thing. I'm just being honest with you, full transparency. They did their own thing, and at the time, they did not want to comply with what we had set out as a policy. When we sent out the Chromebooks to the school sites, many of the school sites, the librarians were supposed to be scanning this and doing all of that correctly. They had a process in place that was developed by Mr. Cothran at Lambs, and many of the school sites did not do that. So they just distributed the Chromebooks, anyone could take them. And there was no keeping track of them. So again, in full transparency, we could not account for 1,200 Chromebooks over the last 4 years at a value of over $250,000. We did not want that to happen again, ever again. So we established a new policy, working with Mr. Triplehorn and the technology department as well as the librarians. So now we have a process in place where everything is tagged by the distributor so that we get that tag on there. We get the listing onto our vision system, and then after all of that is done, then we distribute that to the school sites who are then required to only distribute those after they've been checked out in the Destiny program.
Any other questions, board members? Item B, Mr. Widener, the GCCS Staff Union Collective Bargaining Agreements.
So the collective bargaining agreement is revisited. And it takes partnership between human resources and Grant Cibola County Schools, as well as the superintendent and the union. And so when they revised the collective bargaining agreement, they have lots of meetings and discussions, and it's a great, all of the entities have come together and have come to an agreement. So at this time, I've asked Ms. Salazar to report what the collective bargaining agreement is about.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Mr. Superintendent, colleagues and committee members, and my partner with the collective bargaining unit, our union president, Tia. As Mr. Widener mentioned, it's important to have really great relationships. When two entities come together for the betterment of one goal, we can achieve a lot. And I'd like to say that throughout my trainings in New Mexico, I go to several of them with union negotiations. We are one of the only districts that has the partnership that we have, because we have one goal, and that is to take care of our employees and to follow policy and do the right thing. And so without Ms. Tia, we wouldn't be able to accomplish what we have. And so I do want to acknowledge her efforts and support. And we do have critical conversations, and we have conversations that we do not always agree on, but we do reach a happy medium, because we both know what we do to collectively our employees will benefit. And so it's so important to acknowledge her and her collaboration. We are one of the few districts that has that working relationship with the union. I've heard of horrible stories and horrible negotiations, and luckily I haven't had to be a part of that. And so I'm really glad to have that partnership with our union. And so if you'll look on your portion where it has the collective bargaining agreement, if I can speak correctly, the negotiated items that we discussed were the salary schedule, contracts of employment, sick leave, time and attendance, health and wellness, reimbursement. And on those proposals with the salary schedule, I want to mention, you do have the salary schedule that we had as an agreement and proposal. I want to note that our salary schedule is still 6% above what the base of our state is. And that's to remain competitive with our neighboring districts and to offer employees a better salary. What we did is, as far as the modifications on the salary schedule, we modified athletics and activities. We added a CTE sponsor because in the past it was listed as a group, and it was a small amount, $600 divided by possibly 3 people. And as you've seen in previous presentations, we have our CTE sponsors taking students to
Is it this one, Lisa?
no, it's gonna be this one. And it should have been in front of that page, Ms. Daly?
They don't have it.
I think Lorraine may have gone to go get them because that was part of it, and I apologize. I'll wait so you can follow along.
We don't have it.
No.
We don't have it
It
at
should
all.
have been in
She's gonna,
front of the form. I was wondering why, you know, kind of when you're teaching a class and you have that blank look and
everybody was
stare.
distracted
I was
and
like, okay, we will regroup. We will provide.
We were trying to
adequate
follow.
supplies.
we were trying to follow, but we didn't know what it was.
Yeah, hey, no, this-
No, we had copies, I believe she has copies.
Entertain us.
Sorry? So at this time, I'm gonna solicit some entertainment from the audience. I could call Miss Tia and show you exactly how we are partners.
Mrs. Elkins could tell us a joke.
What am I supposed to do? Song and dance. She just that mic. Does she need?
There she is.
Okay, I'm right here. This is one of the ones I took out. Okay. I have one if you'll.
Thank you.
She's really earning her EduChampion title.
She is. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. So if you look at the back, the negotiated items or were the items that I just discussed, salary schedule, contract, sick leave, time and attendance, health and wellness reimbursement, and it also gives you the ratified date. The union did go and have it for a vote, and it was ratified on Thursday, May 30th. If you look at the proposals under each salary schedule, I was explaining about our salary schedule for 24-25. We are 6% above the base of the state, and we wanted to modify athletics and activities. I was explaining CTE sponsors had a small stipend for the year. And we've heard Skills USA, we've heard our FFA, we've heard of all of our students participating in these events statewide, and it takes a lot of time. And we really wanted to make sure that we appropriately provided the adequate supervision or stipend for them. And so it does have some requirements. The stipend does have some requirements. They have to have a membership, a paid membership. They have to go to so many competitions. And so that's also an added amount for our CTE sponsors. And hopefully we'll be able to retain those sponsors. Because as you know, when you're going through these competitions and you get $100 for your time and you've spent endless amounts of time, it just doesn't sit right and feel right for us as a district and our employees. So we really wanted to make sure that we took care of our sponsors. We're getting some recognition. Our students are placing and they're getting recognized statewide. So we also want to make sure that our sponsors are adequately taken care of fiscally. We also added a cross-country and volleyball to the middle school. We added a girls' head and assistant wrestling coach. So as we've mentioned, we've heard from the wrestling team, and you saw for yourself in our audience, we had an influx of female wrestlers. And so we want to be able to offer a head and assistant coach for those sports. We did update the mechanic and facilities maintenance salary schedule. As you know, you've heard me say that time and time, in fact, for 3 years now, we've been trying to find a mechanic. We've been trying to maintain or continue to retain maintenance crews. We just weren't competitive. And we felt this was the year that we really need to be competitive. We need to attract employees to come and work with us. We have several mechanics in our communities, and they will get paid more driving to Albuquerque and being in that role in a different town. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were competitive with that salary. With the contracts, so due to the 180-day school calendar, that the board has approved, we had to we had to look and revise contracts for cooks and our bus drivers. And so we took that to negotiations, and we agreed on moving the school contracts from cook contracts to 180 to 182, and our bus drivers from 174-day contract to 179 to meet the 180-day school calendar. And we also want to modify our sick leave accrual. And so, as long as we all know, employees had the option to either take a half a day or a full day of sick leave. So if you had an appointment that was gonna last you 1 hour, you had to make a determination whether you were gonna take one day or a half a day. And as you know, as employees, it's difficult to get a substitute for a half a day. And so employees would take the full day, even though they didn't need it. And here we had a sub for in a classroom all day. And so what we wanted to do is we really wanted to have our employees have the ability just to schedule a 1 hour. If they needed to leave 1 hour at the end of the day, we wanted to meet those needs. We felt that it was important having that teacher in that classroom all day and miss the last period or 1 hour rather than a full day of instruction. And so we also wanted to make sure that we were decreasing our expenditure for our substitutes. We found that that was a high expenditure. So we feel that this will really help mitigate that cost. And so that was an item that we brought to the table and we agreed upon. Our time and attendance, and so in order to comply with the Fair Labor Standards Act 4 years ago, the district implemented a paper timesheet in order to record hours for classified staff. The timesheets are not used to determine pay. It was only to have as an auditing purpose, or a paper, copy of time and effort. And so what we wanted to do is just digitize the process. We have files and files and files of timesheets, weekly timesheets. And so we want to digitize that process. And so our hourly employees will simply badge in and out when they come in. But it will not be, it will not reflect their pay. It'll only reflect the time that they're there. So that was agreed upon. And then our health and wellness, as you heard Mr. Maldonado present, that our insurances were going to go up to a 15%, I believe at one time, 15.53. And we were just taken aback. We thought that's gonna be a big blow for our employees. Thankfully, it didn't go up to a 15.53, it went up to a 10%, which is still high. The state gave all employees a 3% raise. Now we raised our premiums 10%. So that takes away what benefit of the raise. And so to help our employees and adjust that, we wanted to give a health and wellness reimbursement, a 1-year health and wellness. We'll revisit that each year to see how we can adjust our employees' pay by the amount of $1,715. We've had the health and wellness reimbursement in the past, and so we will follow those same guidelines. If an employee goes in and they want their employee portion of the insurance to be reimbursed, then they can simply submit that reimbursement. If they want to go and submit a copay or prescription, whatever the case may be, they can process or submit that reimbursement up to $1,715 just for the school year of 24-25. And so those were all of our proposals. Of course, with the partnership with the union, we all agreed and it was ratified. Any questions?
Sick leave, it says classified employees, hourly, or simply that year. What about the certified?
So certified are on a contract, so they're on a contract, they're not an hourly rate, and that's not necessary to audit their time and effort, so as far as their
So they take off half an hour, then they have to take off an hour, or put in an hour's leave.
Yes, yes.
They're still following the same.
Correct. So they're still following the sick leave accrual and submission, yes, ma'am. Now, we do have a safety portion where certified, and that's gonna be at a later time. But as far as for time and effort, it'll only apply to our classified.
Okay, and then one-time annual allowance, is that all employees or just those on the insurance or whatever,
All
Benefits.
employees,
all employees?
all employees, yes, ma'am.
Anything further from Ms. Salazar?
Would Tia like to come up and say anything? I'd like to invite her up if she would like to come and add or.
Does that moving the, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
does that moving the 180 to 182 for bus drivers and cooks or adding the extra hours, does that affect their contract any or?
Their contract will be moved from that original date to the new date, but they'll be compensated their daily rate. We'll just adjust that salary to meet that contract, yes, ma'am. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and then the bus drivers, I know that they're required to take a rest period, like when they go on trips and stuff, and is that gonna get adjusted in case they have to go on a activity?
So Miss Edwina Henneman adjusts those schedules, those activities, and so she ensures, she looks at all drivers, their routes, and she makes those adjustments so that our drivers will never fall into that category of having to take a rest in the middle of a trip. And so she's great at organizing that and reorganizing trips to meet those needs. Okay, I'm looking at my specialty, thank you.
Tia, will you introduce yourself to us?
Oh boy, I suck at public speaking, totally.
This is not public, this is
Okay,
friends and
alright.
family.
I am
True
Tia,
partnership, she comes up.
I am Tia Harris, I am the president of our local union. I can't thank all of you enough for what you're doing for our district. I'm very happy, very, very happy. Believe me, I wasn't always happy. We do have a good partnership behind closed doors, not always. We have our challenges, but we all, like she said, we always come together and figure it out. Again, I'm really very happy with what we did here. I think this will help all of us. So anyway, there you go, that's it, I'm done.
Board members, did you have any questions for Tia?
I don't know how to ask this. How many issues were the workers take to your attention?
Quite a few.
Quite a few.
I don't have my book with me, that I have them all written down, but there was a lot of issues, but a lot of them were just communication with their coordinator, with their boss, whatever you want, principal. And once we were able to get together, the communication was opened up and it was a compromise. So that was a lot of them. I mean, I was very happy with as few grievances as we've had. So,
And you took up every case that every employee brought to you, or did you turn some down?
no, I didn't turn any down. When they brought it to my attention, it was looked into, and then we went from there, whether or not we needed to continue with the talking. Because the very first level of anything is to have the communication. We have to have meetings, we have to have communications, and it's usually 1 or 2 or 3 times that we do this. And then if it doesn't get resolved, then we start the grievance process, process.
Sort of ballpark figures, I mean,
Probably about 33.
for this school year,
And some of them were repeat.
what do you mean by repeat? They weren't happy the first time around?
They weren't happy with what they were told. And let's take, for example, the HVAC system down at the high school. That was a biggie. And they would come to me, and then we get the communication with maintenance, with Salazar, bring in the superintendent, whatever we needed to do to find out what was going on. They were working on it. They had work orders out on it. Mr. Triplehorn always made sure that that was being worked out. You can't very well do much when the district's already doing everything they can, such as they're supplying a portable heater or a portable AC for each class, moving classes if they need to rooms that the HVAC was working in, the AC or heater. They were doing everything they could. That's not something that, if they weren't doing anything, well, you can bet that would have been a problem, but they were.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hold on, Dr. Archambault.
Oh,
Mr. Wagner, do we have the actual ratified agreement, or is there a document, like a booklet or sign off document that has the schedule?
As far as the proposals,
Yeah, the proposals,
I do, yes, sir.
well, we have, then we see those as a board? In the past, I can't think of the schedule.
I can get those proposals, what they are, I've just created a presentation that has all proposals in your presentation. So all proposals in our negotiated agreement, are indicated in your presentation.
So will we have in the official files that she will get, the actual agreement and the ratification?
We will. And in the past, Dr. Guy, you're thinking of the little booklets. We had little booklets that all of the principals had.
And all these information.
It's actually an online, it's an online
It is, and
document
it's
at
on
this
the
time, so
website.
anyone with my website can access that, yes, sir.
I'm just saying, Mr. Wagner, that it'd be helpful for us to actually know what
To see.
the contents are in addition to the overview, which is what it says.
How often do you guys meet to revisit it?
We do it every year.
Every year?
Every year. 1 year is usually money, and the next year is money and language. But if both parties agreement, if their language needs to be changed or something that needs to be changed, big, we bring it together. We're able to do that.
Is it possible to
Get the,
tonight?
get a copy?
To get a copy online or the
No.
proposal?
The proposal,
Sure, absolutely, I have that in my
if
office.
you could. Maybe we could peek at that.
Sure.
Because if we're gonna approve an agreement, it would be helpful to see that.
So before we vote on
Yeah.
action item C,
Is it
we'll
possible?
get that too.
I can take care of that, sir, yes.
Thanks, appreciate that, okay.
Thank you.
Do you need
Well,
a
so
copy
much.
per, can I just bring my binder out so you could view that?
I don't know how big it is. I just
It's
remember
very
seeing-
big.
I've seen a booklet in the past, so I don't know whether that might be,
Why don't you
We
bring
probably saw it
the
last year. Did you see it
binder
last year?
so we could see
Challenge.
how big it is and then,
And I'll bring the policy or the negotiated agreement online.
that sounds like a good start. Thank you,
is
ma'am.
the negotiated agreement, lengthy or is it,
That's why we have it online, because it was costing a pretty penny to get those printed out. Yes, sir.
I remember seeing those, there were multiple pages, I just couldn't, they were small and.
It's a small blue book.
Yeah,
And
so I
that's
just
also,
don't remember.
that's also public information, so anybody.
Yeah,
Yes, it's online, ma'am. Yes, anyone can access it at any time. Any community member, any employee. Yes.
Perhaps you could
Okay,
facilitate getting that link sent to all board members.
I can take care of that.
Thank you, ma'am. Next is item C.
We've we've reached item C. We are just completing our first year, the first year of our partnership with SFE Food Services. We are looking at the contract for next year. And so I've asked Mr. Triplehorn to kind of present about that, what that entails, and
So it's actually gonna be a joint effort between Mr. Maldonado and myself. So like Mr. Whiter said, the SFE contract was initially put out last year. This is our first year going through the program. We have had some challenges came up throughout the year. We've been able to overcome most of those. One of the, well, in your packets, this page here, I'm sorry, I didn't hold that up long enough for you to see. So, the review of the existing process revealed that 4 schools were not being followed. So SFE actually brought in, personnel through Gallup that work in the kitchens to go around and shadow the, different schools to help them manage the scoops that they're supposed to be using. A lot of the problems that we found were that they weren't using the correct utensils. So when they're serving green beans, they're supposed to use the blue handled ladle. That's the right size portion. They were using the green one instead, so they were given the wrong. So that was one of the first challenges we had. We also found that some of the food counts were off compared to what we had submitted to SFE, or to when we put it out in the RFP, and the PED. So, our meal counts this year are a little bit lower than what they were last year, and that's only because there's a more accurate method for tracking those meals served. The other issue that we continue to have is we have a huge absentee rate with our kitchen staff, with the GCCS kitchen staff, okay? And there is a chart underneath there that shows you the number of absences by sites. There's no names on there. You can see that one of our employees missed 21% of the time. So that means that person was in the kitchen 4 days out of the week, basically. The other day they were off, okay? You'll also notice that some of our highest absentee rates are with our cook managers, okay? And so our cook managers are the ones that are driving our program. And so we are looking at how we're going to adjust that for next year. It may be reorganization of some of the cook managers to different locations. So those were the challenges that SFE had. They had a difficult time recruiting initially. They recruiting a chef. So the first chef that they brought on board, they did the opening day for the GCCS Welcome Back to School event. And SFE was catering that event, basically making breakfast burritos for the staff. The chef really dropped the ball on that process, so the chef was looking for a new job the next day. SFE then brought in another chef that worked for a little while, wasn't the right fit for the community. So they moved that chef to a different location and they brought in our current chef, which you guys get to sample her food every night before a board meeting. We're looking at that to beef that up a little bit more as well. One of the other options that we didn't do, and this may be from past experiences with the kitchen staff, is if a kid brings their lunch from home, they are also allowed to get a meal from the cafeteria. Okay? That not only helps our meal counts, but a lot of times, and when I was a principal, I used to see kids what they would bring for lunch, and they'd bring a little Lunchable with like 4 crackers and then 4 pieces of ham in it, right? Definitely not enough for the kid to eat through the day. Or they would bring a bag of hot Cheetos, and that was it. Okay? So one of our things that we're gonna focus on for next year is encouraging those kids that bring their lunches, that you can go get a tray from the window. You can go up to the salad bar and get as much salad as you want. You can go up and get fresh fruits and vegetables. That is all covered under our funding by the state. So some successes.
Don't I get to talk
No,
about
yes,
this?
go ahead, I'm sorry.
You get to talk about the money.
Well, we can talk about, so the money part, so the price escalation for this year is only 4.58%, not very high, $2.8 million for the year. As he mentioned, we brought in some new management, which really helped. We increased the portion sizes in the elementary schools. The elementary schools were bound by a K through 6 portion size. And if you've seen some of those sixth graders, they're awfully big, and a K through 6 portion size doesn't cut it. So we were able to successfully ask the state to give us a waiver to provide a portion size K through 8th graders, so middle school. So that really helped support the students there. We also, of course, have the full service salad bar. And then this year, we're implementing the supper program, which will provide students at Laguna Acoma and Grants High School a full 3 meals per day coming into the school. They have to just simply, in the afternoon, participate in a simple enrichment program of some sort, then they get to eat before they go home. It's also very helpful for those athletes who might be going to practice or might be doing homework afterwards, and then they eat first and then they go to practice. So, and the other really great benefit about this is that, let's say I'm the athlete and I'm participating in the program. If I have any family members who are under 18 at home, they can all come and eat as well with me. So it not only serves the student at that particular school, but it can serve all the children under 18 in that particular household, which is a great benefit there. We also had some carryover funds that we used to purchase this year some new equipment. Our food costs were decreased because of the new pricing arrangements that SFE was able to provide to us as well. And so I provided a list of expenses for you in the part of your packet. It looks like this, part of your packet. And you can see where our GCS salaries and additional compensation, what we pay for retirement and all that, came out to $1.2 million. The SFE component of that was 1.5, so our total costs were $2.8 million there. So we continue to share in that cost until eventually all new employees will be SFE employees and not employees of the district, and they'll have complete management over those individuals. So we're asking the board to extend the 1-year contract as a part of the agreement that we had last year. We do it year by year. The state allows us to extend the contract 1 year at a time for up to 4 more years, for a total of 5 years. So this would be our 2nd year. As I said, the price escalation is 4.58%, so it would be $2,869,391. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'm looking for that budget, you said. This one, is this what you're talking about?
It looks like this. It's
It
just a
was
simple
the-
explanation of the expenses for the year.
I think it was the last page.
It's on the back.
I'm happy to go make a copy for you.
Here, she can have mine.
I was gonna say,
Wait,
keep going,
no. it's
No.
not. It's this, it's
flip again.
got a, yeah,
There you go. Oh, no, right in front of the blue.
That one.
So Mr. Triplehorn, just a real quick question while Ms. Hunt Daly is looking for her information. Mr. Maldonado indicated that family members under the age of 18, do they need to be enrolled in the GCCS school system to partake of those meals, or can it be any child in that household?
So it will be any child in that household. So it's similar to our summer lunch program, summer breakfast and lunch program. So our summer lunch, breakfast and lunch, we feed all children under 18. So yes, it could be a sibling that goes to St. Teresa's could come in,
Wonderful.
or a little 3-year-old can come and have,
A meal.
a meal.
Wonderful.
One of the other things that we and it's not in our report, is we are going to provide, and this is through the state as well, for any breaks that we have, we are gonna provide boxes of food for students to take home that need food at home. And so it's gonna be like our own backpack program, I guess, if they have that here. So we would provide, like Thanksgiving break, we would provide them 7 breakfasts and 7 lunches to take home for the break. For Christmas, it would double that, and then for spring break, we would do the same thing. So that's a program we're gonna implement as well next year, so.
That's wonderful. And are the children gonna be requesting that, or is that just gonna be an automatic provision for students?
So it'll be a request. So, we had the same program at the district I worked at before. The secondary kids, it's real hard for them to request that. And this was during COVID, we were doing that. And so the secondary kids don't wanna say, hey, I need food to take home. And so what we did is we would put boxes out as the kids were walking out of the building, and they could just grab one if they wanted. So it's not embarrassing.
That's a wonderful thing for our kids
Yes.
and their families. Ms. Daly?
this is the end of our first year, and I would imagine that we're talking about that this was a pilot project in the original sense. Did we get an end of year survey from students, parents, staff that said it was successful, or that the students ate the actual meal, or they were, I know there was a 5 menus, and a lot of the feedback that I got from parents and students that they didn't like what was being served, and they went to the pizza. Mostly what most kids ate every day was pizza. And of course, the salad bar already existed before it became there. And I had one specific parent that first they started out with all kinds of fruit, grapes, nectarines, and everything. And then when they were asked to replenish it, they were told they were out of money. And so I don't know how many sites that happened at. But and so they were reduced to just apples and oranges. And whether or not, these kids asked for the other kind of stuff.
So-
I don't know what they were told, but the people serving were told that they couldn't provide grapes and all the other kind of fruits because they were out of money.
So of course,
We wound up with a surplus.
we actually ended up with
We're not out of money.
we're not out of money, so I don't know where they were getting that from. So I can't address that statement. But we are, of course, we're at the mercy of what's in season, okay? So if grapes are not in season, yes, we can buy them, but they're gonna be really expensive, okay? So with our fresh fruits and vegetables program, which is funded by the state, we buy basically what's in season. And unfortunately, in the middle of winter, there's not a whole lot that's in season. So we do mainly serve, apples and oranges during those cold months. And when the other fruits become available or at a more reasonable cost, then SFE steps in and buys those from our vendors. So, but as far as being out of money, we actually had a surplus of almost $750,000 this year, so.
Well, I knew that for the previous years, as long as I've been on the board, food services has always had a surplus. Every time the budget went to, head, we were always red flag. As long as food service has this much in balance, and so they tried to use it for like raises for staff, but they were told they couldn't do that. So when I got the parent comment that said they were told they were out of money, and I said, can't be true, because I know food service is never out of money.
Well, we get close in certain areas, but
Yeah.
most areas, no, we don't.
So I will point you to this document here that's in your packet. This is directly from OBMS, the online budget management system for this current year. This is our actual expenses. So I'll point you to the very first line where it says 11,111,11112 restricted cash, $2.9 million, $2,988,000. This was the amount of money from last year that was carried over and not spent on student food or any other services, but mostly on student food. Too much money that was carried over. So when Mr. Triplehorn reports that we went down to a carryover of $715,000, I point that as a success that we provided more food, more healthier food, fresher fruits, fresh salads, things like that. So we were able to do that. And the goal is to provide a larger rotation of the menu, which we weren't able to do this year because we weren't able to train many of the cooking staff to do that because of the high absentee rate. If you're not there, you can't learn. So the SFB had to scale back, shrink back the rotation of the menu so that food could still be provided to students in these increased portions, right? And so now we're looking forward to addressing the absentee issue. And if you ask anyone at the SFE staff, we can prove that the absentee rate for SFE employees is much lower than the absentee rate for GCCS employees. That right there should speak volumes in terms of how much better this program is going to get in the next year as we continue to improve it and as we continue to make changes in programming itself. So less money carried over, more money put into actual food. We're also going to be introducing the new point of sale program, which allows students to use the snack bar area and get food there, alleviating the long lines like at the high school, for example. And so they'll have more choices there. That will help with alleviating some of the stress of getting the food, right, and how much they can get.
So with the amount of food that we prepare, especially at the larger schools, do you ever run out of money? Run out of food?
So,
These schools like say Grant High School, do they ever run out of food?
entirely out of food?
Yeah, when
No.
students were.
No, where two students were turned away without a meal? No. We may have run out of what they wanted, but there was other options for them. So,
And did you have, surveys, and I know you can do it on a computer, where parents and even kids can.
Miss Daly, I can't hear you with your hand over your mouth, I'm sorry.
Okay, with, seeing it was done on surveys where they can answer whether or not they like the food, what did they find wrong? Was that done, since this was a pilot year kind of thing? Should we have done a survey to get the input back from the community and from the actual students themselves? I know at one time they took a survey, before they even started, they did prepare meals and asked people to come in and eat and test the food, but there was only like maybe 84 people that showed up, and so I was told, well, asking, doing it at all different school sites would have been impossible, but it would have been at least a better, better understanding or better report from the school sites, whether or not they care for or like the food. And so this is all prepared food already that comes in, and then the cooks just warm it up. Is that what we're talking about?
nope, we do not.
So actually cooked on site, prepared from scratch.
Correct. And we had some cook managers that didn't want to do that, so they did their own thing, and so that was a problem with the program. So to address the survey issue, any survey that the school district generally puts out is not reported to very highly. We did a survey of the principals. Dr. Martin did a survey of the principals and didn't even get responses from all the principals, okay? So when we do surveys to the community, especially to parents who don't eat in the cafeteria, I personally feel that that would be not useful information, because they're not gonna be able to answer whether or not they like the food. They don't eat it, they don't have any way to gauge that, okay?
I will say that we did certainly get feedback from principals during the principals meetings. And when we looked further into what their concerns were, we actually went to go visit many of the schools. We found some of these irregularities, which is not part of the SFE program. So we were able to point out to, and I'll use Milan as a perfect example. They were not following some of the guidelines there. They were not providing the correct portions. The principal didn't know that. That's why he complained bitterly. They're not getting the food that you promised, the amount of food that you promised, which is when he identified serving processes and things like that. We also went over to Cubero Elementary and watched there and sat there during the lunches there. Found out that kids who were bringing their sack lunch were just being sat down over here on the side and not being offered the free lunch or any milk or anything else like that. So that's where we were able to ascertain some of the pitfalls and some of the issues that we're facing with the compliance with the implementation. And so we didn't field the survey because we identified right off the bat some of the issues, and we addressed those with SFP, very responsive to our needs. So we feel like moving forward, now that we have 1 year under our belt, we have identified some of those issues are, that once they get addressed, then I think absolutely a survey of students would be fantastic to get that. Having focus groups, having and implementing what SFE wanted to bring in the first place, having kids choose some of the menus, having them cook some of the food, having them grow some of the food, and providing that farm to table work, that takes time to do. This first year really was a transition year, and it was difficult. It was difficult for everyone around, not just the cooks. It was difficult for Mr. Triplehorn. It was difficult for SFE. But moving forward, we can start making really good progress with these programs that we're wanting to implement.
So now that, we've kind of ironed out, I don't know how to use that word, but identified some of the weaknesses at the school site, would it be appropriate to go to each school site and make this report to them so that they could hear what you're presenting to us? Because we hear it as an outside audience. We don't know unless we go to the actual school to visit, and during the time, which I have done and got scolded for, because I wasn't supposed to be in the cafeteria, but to handle some of these complaints that I hear from parents and from staff and from the community, having this presentation brought to them directly might solve some of those issues and answer some of those questions, and that might make it more acceptable to them to follow through on it or to approve of it. Maybe an invite every now and then to come and eat. I don't know if that would send up the cost, but just something that would provide more information directly to the community, to the parents, to the students themselves, so they don't hear it secondhand from me, because I can tell them, this is what they said, okay? And I'd rather them hear it from the horse's mouth from you guys. So maybe just a planned visit at each school site to listen to them rather than have them. When they saw this on the agenda, I got, oh God, complaints from 8 o'clock on since last week about, are we still gonna do that project? Are we still gonna have SFE? I heard Las Lunas or Belen threw them out, we didn't like their food or whatever. So I don't know how to answer those questions.
So I mean, it's a wonderful idea, and I think we should do it next year. It's a fantastic idea. We'll work on making sure that we implement that. That way it'll give us some feedback that we can provide you with sort of halfway through the year or a quarter through the year, and that would give you that feedback, and so people can see the progress that we're making. So I think it's a great idea. I would really like to implement that.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Daly, if I may add one thing. One of the things when we have done our NMSBA training, they recommend that when we're hearing complaints from parents and students, that we encourage those parents and students to reach out to the principals at their schools. And then after talking and being able to have conversations with their principals, then if that doesn't, help resolve the situation, then go ahead and move up to reaching out to the superintendent, because the superintendent may not be aware of, those complaints by the children and the parents about a situation. So I wanted to remind all of us board members that, we have gotten training on reminding, those families and students to reach out to their site administrators to help figure out the problems. And Dr. Archambault, you were gonna, oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I do that.
Wonderful.
I've had training for years in NFBA conferences. And so I remind them of the chain of command.
Wonderful.
And tell them this is what you need to do. A lot of the parents, especially those in the IPAC meeting, will bring it to their IPAC meeting and complain there. And so I remind them, chain of command. If it's staff, that's it, chain of command. However, the fear of retaliation is so great in our community that they're just deathly afraid, because they feel that that's going to put them a target on their back, and so they don't go through the proper chain of command. But I listen just so they can get it off their chest, and then at the end, then I remind them, okay, it would be nice for you to put your name on it, write it down, put your name on it, and take it to the appropriate chain, but that's it, that's the excuse that I get, is we're afraid. If they have family members that work for the school, they say, well, somehow they're gonna find out I said it, and then they're gonna pick on my daughter, or my son, or my husband, whatever. And so that's kind of, and I'm pretty sure that happens in every community. So I'm just, I'm grateful that you find that good, that you can go to do spot checks at each school site so that you can see for yourself, not just listen to complaints and stuff like that, or having board members read it up, but that you can actually have evidence and you can say, I was there, that happened. I visited Rivera Elementary once at least every other month to make sure the food was being prepared right. And the last problem I have to address now of this person now, but I know when we adopted this program, there was fear from those that were near retirement. And I don't know if Mr. Widener, I know he was here, but I don't know if you were in charge then. But we kind of made a promise to those, we call them, I guess, that were near retirement and then be forced to transfer to SFE employment, therefore losing their years of service to make 5 years. Are we still going to are we still going to honor that commitment we made to them, or are we gonna force them to become SFE employees?
No, we will not force any GCCS employee to become SFE. That has never, ever been part of the plan. As GCCS employees leave or retire, then we do replace them with SFE employees. In fact, I have one employee that's retiring and going to work for SFE starting next week, so. Yeah, that has never been the intent. And
You guys approved this before I was here, but we started
Dr. Guy.
this school year.
What I was doing was, thank you for the presentation, Mr. Maldonado and Mr. Petrone. I was looking at the summary of the program, and I was trying to compare the goals and objectives to the successes. So one of the first one has to do with increasing student participation. And so I was looking at the successes, I didn't see any statistics on really improved student participation, but I think that's good. I'm not asking for it, like, well, I'm making some suggestions. That might be of help. And so I was looking through that, it talked about increasing student participation, reducing food waste, providing more food options, stimulating the program, proportions, appropriate, and I will go with that. Providing menu options, before it used to be limited, and then getting feedback, and that's what she's talking about, I guess feedback, and then I went down to the goals, and there were several goals about purchasing power, attractive menu, student participation, improving academic performance, et cetera, et cetera. So then I went over to and I saw the information on absenteeism. And then one of the successes, what I would suggest, for Mr. Library, is that we, in July, the SFE and our staff come together to develop an implementation plan based upon our first year's successes and difficulties. And develop a plan that actually says these are our expectations for this coming year. These are the goals, measurable goals that we're gonna have, the expectations, some of the key performance indicators, what are we gonna report on? Because I could already hear you guys saying there's some things we're gonna look at. And then a schedule for monitoring, and that's where you guys are going in. But we would actually have a more formalized thing so that the principals and the schools know, the staff know that we are watching over the program to make sure that it is successful. And then an evaluation process, which then identifies the things we're going to evaluate. We're going to evaluate whether we're getting our money's worth, so to speak. And so when we come to this point in next year, we'll have all that data there in front of us saying, these are the things we uncovered during this year. And our evaluation plan says that it worked out in some areas and did, and so then we can improve on that at that point. Surveys then get included in realistic ways, because there are things that that people don't fill out. So there might be some ways to do that, and standardize the implementation. It sounds like we've got GCCS and SFE, so I'm assuming there's a merging of expectations for performance, so I would suggest that we could have that kind of presentation that kind of says, this is our game plan for the coming year. And then go from there. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Can I address one thing that you brought up? So actually with the overage that we had in our budget, SFE and myself, we had to come up with an action plan of how we were gonna address that overage. And part of that action plan is surveying the students, getting more parent involvement, so that we can expand the program and use that money up more effectively. So that's gonna hit a lot of what you just talked about.
Sort of a year two implementation plan with evaluation. Elements of it so that you might even report to us on a quarterly basis or something like that, saying this is where we're at. So that when we get to this point, we already know stuff. And it'll be easier for us to go into the following year, given that we already know. That way, everybody knows that we're organizing our efforts much more in a measurable way in the future. Thank you.
I'm sorry, one more question, Mrs. Lee, just since it's an action, are we voting on extend it for another year, kind of, but not
Not for 4 more years.
for
Just one.
just
One.
another year.
1 year.
Pilot project, because I know you identified some areas that you wanted to work on. So, we're going to honor the, those that are not near retirement, but honor them.
Mr. Jaramillo, you have a question,
Yeah, I
sir.
just have a question about the absenteeism.
Do you think they call in because they're sick, they don't want to spread a virus, get the rest of people sick? Is that normal for absenteeism being in the kitchen? I'm just thinking, you don't wanna go to work if you're sick. I'm just trying to balance this out and figure out why they're not coming in.
So if we were to compare the district average for absenteeism by employees, 7.1% is the district average for across the board, okay?
Compared to 9.9%.
But
Which
what I'm
is
saying
this?
is in the kitchen, has that always been the issue is?
I can't really speak to very far in the past, cause I've only been here for just shy of 2 years now. But no, a lot of them are, and I think maybe with the collective bargaining agreement, with the ability for them to take an hour off or 2 hours, I think that may alleviate some of that. Because some of them do take the whole day off because they start at 6 o'clock in the morning, get done at 2. So if they have an appointment in the morning, they take the whole day off. So, yeah, and so hopefully that alleviates some of it. I don't know if it's the concern with, and Edwina's not here, she could talk about the past with food service, cause that's what she did before. A lot of it is, and this is something that I've identified, I've looked at all of the employees' leave. A lot of them are taking off every payday on Friday. A lot of them are taking off every Monday. So it's a pattern of abuse, which there is a policy that I can use to address that behavior. So I'm going to wholeheartedly enforce that policy next year with our employees.
Well, I've seen here, there's like 35, 29, it's like,
Yeah, there's a,
that's pretty big.
there's a lot of them. There's a lot
I mean,
of
that's
them.
a vacation, you don't even get 30 days of vacation, this guy was gone, or I don't know who it is, but for 35 days?
Mhm.
That's more than a vacation, 2 weeks. But anyway, it's just a question.
And one more, since you made reference to that, and we really can't justify just by looking at the number of flies people take off. And I would hate to use that as a, like, making threat or enforcement. Those that are watching and those that are hearing, they're gonna ask me, and say, well, this is what I was told. There's one thing in here, I wanted to ask you, in your summary, it says the previous menu options for foods are limited, are not always freshly prepared, and high percentage of food offerings are prepackaged. Are you talking about this year, or are you talking about previous years?
Previous years. So the policy says that if there's a clear pattern of abuse with sick leave, that we can require a doctor's note anytime they take leave. So,
But what you indicated that you saw the pattern was the habitual Monday and Friday. That was what you were addressing, correct? Okay.
correct. Now, if someone is sick, genuinely sick, I don't want them there serving kids and making food. So.
But, just do a little caution, it's a human resource issue. And so that means that there's processes within the district that needs to address that. We can't speculate.
No.
And so they could have perfectly good reasons. So in other words, they would be taking leave as in a way that is allowable by the process. So what you would do is I would encourage you to just discuss all of this with personnel and with the union actually to make sure that we provide the staff with the opportunities that are available for them for leave and that part of the new implementation plan for year 2 is that we want to encourage and maybe be changing the policy could help do that. And so we just need to do it in a more
Strategic.
human relations approach to doing, discussing it, because they can see who they are. Just by looking at that, they'll know who we're talking about. That's my concern. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, just one last, and to do it in a professional manner, I know what he's talking about, to do it in a professional manner, not threaten, not curse at them, not make reference to, you're always late, but do it in a professional manner. And I suffered from that in past employment, where they blame all the teachers for something, and I'm sitting there like, who has time to check out early? I'm running around making copies and doing this thing ready for the next thing. So I tell you, you're talking to the choirs and the principals, it's not the teachers that are doing that. We need to address those people that are doing it, not us, because we sit there every day, that teachers meeting and get blamed for doing this, and we know it's not us. So just, word of caution that, just be professional, sometimes we forget that professionalism goes a long way instead of accusations and, even a threat. These always say, well, you can tell when somebody's mad, or they will give you that, roll your eyes over, do all this other stuff. I really had to curb myself. Just be professional, always, and treat our employees, and staff, our parents, our students with respect. That's why we put culture and equity into our school site, because we come from all backgrounds, and so it's just a matter of what's appropriate and what's not. Thank you.
So, can I respond to that? So I don't know if you're implying that I am unprofessional, okay?
No.
Because I've been doing administration for 17 years, so I know how to talk to employees, okay? And so I do take a little offense to that comment, okay? Just on the record.
I meant no offense by it, but it's just word of caution to everyone, myself included. The way I talk to students, the way I talk to fellow teachers, the way I talk to the board member, it's just an idea of just being professional, that goes a long way, and, I apologize if you took offense, I didn't mean that you weren't professional. Just think that when we discuss things like that, and we talk about reasons why the employee aptitude is right, then we start identifying, or I don't want to say pick on, but just identifying those people are. You're right, in every organization, Mondays are usually the days off, especially after a holiday, a 3-day weekend, it takes another Monday, or paydays. That's not just our organization, that's in every organization that always appears. Payday, they're out the window, they don't come back till Monday, or maybe Tuesday. So it happens everywhere, not just at GCCS. Thank you.
In our place, we fire them.
Anything further on the SFE food services? Any questions? Data, Mr. Widener.
That was a long one.
That was.
All right, we have reached the last presentation, and this actually came out of our June 4th meeting. We were talking about our IMASA scores, our NMASA scores, and the growth that we've seen go throughout the district. And Mrs. Elkins made the comment that their SAT data looked very good and that they had access to it. So after June 4th, on June 5th, I came in and I asked Dr. Martin if he and Ms. Pettis would work on pulling SAT data. And I am so excited about the look of this SAT data. I think it looks pretty good. So, Dr. Martin, will you present the SAT data?
Sure do, sir. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Widener, colleagues in person and virtual audiences. So lately, the SAT data from College Board came out. I just want everyone to know that the proficiencies that you'll be seeing are College Board proficiencies. So this data, they will supply an MPED, and an MPED will determine state proficiencies based off results from different districts in the state. So these proficiencies are not necessarily New Mexico state proficiencies, and that's why they're able to compare it nationally. In this particular one, we only compared it with the state, but nationally, it's also available on on the College Board platform. So we compared last year's and this year's proficiencies in district-wide and in the two categories, which is evidence-based reading and writing and math. Before I do that, we as a district actually took the initiative to supply and to purchase our high schools this year with SAT review materials and encourage them to do SAT reviews as part of their USTA program and after school programs. And we wanted our district to improve the results of our SAT assessment. So the first page right here shows you the total combined reading and writing and math proficiencies. From 22-23, we went up 3%, from 4 to 7%. For just the evidence-based reading and writing, the proficiency went up 4.8%. And then for math, we went up by 3%. So comparing those three with how the state fared this year on the SAT assessment. Again, these proficiencies are College Board proficiencies, they're nationwide, not necessarily New Mexico's, that they will use in reporting math and ELA and science proficiencies later on. Maybe we'll see that in about July and early August. So in overall proficiency, we went up 3% statewide. The state went down 3%. And I can tell you nationwide, the proficiency went down as well. It was just included here because I told Jean to just compare us with the state and not the entire nation. And then for proficiency in evidence-based reading and writing, our district went up 4.8%, the state stayed the same at 34%. And then for math, we went up 3%, the state went down by 4%. And again, nationwide, all SAT takers, the proficiency went down as well. Everyone that took the SAT, yeah, everyone that took the SAT. And then the page 5 of the report, you'll see every high school in our district's performance in evidence-based reading and writing. Franz High School went up by 5.2%. And then Laguna Acoma High School also went up, and also Early College High School. So all our high schools basically had growth in proficiency in reading and writing. Or the number of proficient students went up. And then for mathematics, that's Franz High School showed growth. Laguna Acoma High Schools pretty much stayed the same. Early College High School showed growth. The district showed growth. The state showed a decrease in percent proficient students. The percent, proficiency. So the percent of students proficient at each side. No, this is just the that just shows you the percentage.
The total.
The percentage, yes, the percentage, but the actual numbers there are the percent of students or percent of students that took the SAT that were deemed proficient in college. But again, that doesn't necessarily match the state's proficiency later on, because the state uses the SAT for their to gauge proficiency in math and ELA as a state, but they will have to figure that when they get the entire state's results. When we report later on what the state reports as the proficiency is for Laguna Acoma and Grants High School, then that will be the state's official report of proficiency level for our high schools. This is College Board's proficiency rating right now, which they use nationwide for all students that take the SAT. And finally, the last two slides will show you the evidence-based reading and writing proficiency for our subgroups. So all our subgroups gained proficiency in American Indian, Caucasian, and Hispanics gained proficiency in reading and writing. And then the last slide will be for math. So the percent of students taking the assessment in each subgroup that show proficiency in each of those subjects.
Does this include the numbers for early childhood?
Yes, and I can tell you how many students in each campus took the SAT. For Grants High School, there were 152 students. For Laguna Acoma High School, there were 53. And for Early College High School, there were only 8.
Could you repeat that, Dr. Martin, please?
Yeah, for Grants High School, there were 152 students. Mostly 11th grade students are the ones that take it. Laguna Acoma High School, 53. Early College High School, that's 8. There were 119 Native American students that took the SATs. 72 Hispanics and 15 Caucasians. 15, 1 month.
Did you make this comparison with previous years?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, no, I mean
The number?
Yeah.
JHS had, actually, those, JHS has lower numbers that took it this year. Laguna Acoma High School has more students that took it this year. Last year, they only had 38. Now they have 53. Early College High School last year has 7. Now there's 8.
And that 53, 152, and those are juniors, right?
Those are juniors.
And LHS are also juniors?
All of them are juniors. Because the state only tests our 11th grade students at this time. For math, ELA, and science. That was my report. Any questions? Members, Madam President.
I think it's very encouraging to see that our students have improved. It's not good to see that the state overall has declined, but good data to see that our students have climbed up. Board
Well,
members, questions,
Not
comments?
exact, we're not right where we wanna be, but we're making growth.
Just maybe, this year's report just include this data versus the next year's data. Can I have some kind of track consistency?
Maybe a 4-year or 3-year trend.
Then you can figure out, maybe what successes led to this increase and more people taking it. So that can at least, schools like can look at this and say, oh, I really implemented this program, so must be working.
Thank you.
We were doing that with the ACT and we had that data and now the SAT's different. No, the state of New Mexico doesn't promote the,
The state of New Mexico, yeah, has adopted SAT as its assessment tool for them. But I would like to say kudos to our
Yes,
principals, right?
principals.
Good to see that we have growth.
Wonderful. Board members, any further questions for Dr. Martin?
I like the graphs, I understand them.
Yeah, they are great graphs, yes, very clear. Certainly. So we're going to, at a board member's request, take a brief break to allow for a pit stop, if you will. So we will, it is 7:58, we will come back in 5 minutes, please, for the superintendent's report. Thank you all for sticking it out. It's a long one tonight.
It's not too bad.
No, not too much longer. We've got the superintendent's report and a couple of action items,
It'll
and
be short.
theirs is the one,
it'll be short.
theirs is the one they're most excited about, so they
I
can
didn't
get their,
follow through on my plans
donation.
yesterday, so it'll be good.
Why do you think you'd be here?
he's so brave to
You
go.
guys are my team,
So-
I feel like I need to be here with
Yeah,
with you guys
sometimes you need
to do all of
distraction, yeah. Sometimes you need that
Yes.
distraction.
Soda?
No, yellow thing. You talking you, highlight your name.
Oh, a
A
highlighter.
highlighter.
I will get you one, yes. Yes, but don't drink the orange juice. You would, it's like wine.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
and represented our district in Farmington at the Government to Government Conference. And so I asked if they would both kind of give their insight. I asked Lisa to kind of give back her feedback from the Government to Government Conference.
It was a pleasure to attend. I had never been a part of that, and to see each pueblo represented and each district represented, it really could have been a powerful conversation. We had the Navajo prep school present, as well as the Santa Fe Indian School present, and they gave their best strategies. We wanted to hear what their successes were, what programs they had. And so they were able to share those practices with the districts, so which was really nice. We had a breakout session that was a representation of the Northwest region. And we had Arsenio Romero, he's the one that facilitated the conversation.
Secretary of Education.
Secretary of Education, thank you. He facilitated that conversation, and we had, again, Pueblo members, representation, and our district members that represented that area, and then our governor had come in and out a couple of times and participated with that conversation. So it was a very unique situation. It was a very powerful, could be very powerful if we would be able to utilize that in a common goal and work together. One of the elders, and I'll always remember this, he was one of our last speakers. He stood up and he gave advice coming from an elder and asked to stop the finger pointing, each side stop the finger pointing and embrace each other and link arms together so that we can start doing great things for our students. And that just resonated with me. That was my takeaway from the whole day. And so he was, of course, had such wisdom and such compromise. I mean, he just wanted to work together and collaborate, a true collaboration. And so that was something that I took away from that.
It was a fabulous experience. We walked into the Navajo Preparatory School's gymnasium, and it was what you would think you would see at the United Nations. They had, beautiful tables set with flowers and, the representation of our state and the tribal leaders was a really very moving and beautiful, beautiful thing to see. I was able to have a brief conversation with Governor Lujan Grisham, and she is quite the powerhouse. And she had a lot of opinions that she shared about education in the state. And one of the things that I really took in that same breakout session that the governor shared with us is that there are only a handful of school districts in the state right now whose data has shown growth and improvement. And we are one of those districts. And I think that when we're talking about over 80, or is it 90, 93 districts? 92, or is it
89.
89, I was close,
89 and then the charter
schools. But only a handful, and I think she told us 5 districts in the entire state showed growth and improvement in our scores and our data. And I took that to heart because I think that the district is doing well for our students that way. That was my big takeaway on that. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful day to learn about the cultures and the successes they're having and the strategies they're using. And so that's the gist of the day. So thank you for hearing us out on that one.
The second item that I have that I wanted to share with the board On June 10th, so 8 days ago, a week ago, I received the memorandum from Secretary Romero with the New Mexico PED. They did adjust our initial unit value. As you hopefully remember from when we were building our budget in the spring, our increase in unit value was about $200 per unit. On June 10th, Secretary Romero sent out this memo that it would be going up $111.20 per unit. And so for us, that means an increase in $798,942.98. And so that's exciting that we do have that to add to our budget and to utilize those funds. So wanted to share that with all of you.
What was that amount, Mr. Wagner?
$798,942.98. And then finally, I wanted to update you on the Continental Divide building. We have been trying to get that building, we made an offer as the year ended, and we've been waiting to close on that building. We found out that there was a lien on the building, that there was a loan that Continental, and the building was part of that. And so we are working with their attorneys to get that all settled, and you know, they've not been in they received a grant and they haven't been in the building for some time now. And so we're hoping to have all of that settled around the 9th of July. So we want to close on that building, and then Mr. Triplehorn will start with the remodel, and we will continue with the plans that we had from last fall for that building. So just wanted to update you. We're working, we're much closer than we've been. And it's been a whole process trying to acquire that property, so but we will have it free and clear and not be tied up with the lien. So that'll be coming in the next few weeks.
If there's a need for the board to discuss the next legal steps, we need to have an executive session on it, so.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Guy. And that kind of concludes the superintendent's report. I promised it wouldn't be too long. So now we can
Move to action
move to action.
items. Our first action item is consideration of approval of the 2023-2024 fixed assets inventory report for the PED reporting. Superintendent Widener, is there a recommendation?
I recommend that we approve the fixed assets inventory report, so we can get that sent off and on the PED's radar.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the 2023-2024 fixed assets and inventory report for PED reporting?
Make a motion to approve the 2023-24 fixed assets inventory report for PED reporting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Mr. Ortiz to approve the 2023-2024 fixed assets inventory report for PED reporting. Is there any discussion?
Due date, when is this due?
It's required for us to bring it to the board before every July, before the end of June, the end of the school year. So it's not actually reported to the PED. As I said before, it's a pro forma report that we add to the balance sheet and update the fixed assets in our accounting system. So it's every year we're supposed to bring this to the board. We did this last year, but we didn't bring it to the board. We got an audit finding. This will remove one of those audit findings.
Anything further, board members? All right, hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Shambo?
Yes.
Mrs. Hunt Daily?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, the motion carries. Next will be the consideration of approval of the Grant Cibola County Schools Staff Union Collective Bargaining Agreement and ratification. Superintendent Widener, is there a recommendation?
I recommend that we, I will make sure that you all have the electronic version of the collective bargaining. But I recommend that we do approve for this year.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the GCCS Staff Union Collective Bargaining Agreement and ratification? Thank you. And may I have a second, please? Thank you. It has been moved by Ms. Hunt Daily and seconded by Mr. Ortiz to approve the Grant Cibola County Staff Union Collective Bargaining Agreement and ratification. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, yes, ma'am.
Question. You said that was an audit finding this year or last year?
On this motion,
No, on the,
It was an audit finding on,
on the fixed asset,
grant.
correct, we did the fixed asset report, but we didn't bring it to the board for approval.
is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Shambo?
Yes.
Ms. Hunt Daily?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, the motion carries. Next, we have consideration of approval of SFE Food Services 2024. Now, here's the question, is this date wrong? Because we have 2024, 2027 proposal acceptance.
It is
Should
incorrect,
that-
it should be 24, 25.
Thank
It
you.
is 1 year.
It is 1 year, correct?
Mr. Maldonado did provide you the numbers for the motion. And it says,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and suggesting that we use the
There
numbers
you go.
that are stated here. Because then it also includes the numbers.
Well, thank you. Thank you, sir. That's very helpful. So this will be consideration to approve an additional 1-year contract with the option to extend an additional year for each of 3 subsequent years with Southwest Food Service Excellence, SFE, to manage and operate the food services program at Grant Cibola County Schools. The contract term is July 1, 2024 through July 30th, 2025.
June
And the
30th,
amount,
ma'am.
yes, I'm sorry, through June 30th, 2025. The contract value for year 1 is $2,869,391 and will be paid as normally with the 21000 food service funds. So, Mr. Widener, I'm trying to find my copy of it, so
It's in presentations.
I'm trying.
It's right in the middle of the presentation.
I apologize, cause I need to give yours back to you so that you can make your
It's before the.
recommendation. I found it. There's yours, sir. Thank you. Now you're able to make your recommendation. So Mr. Widener, is there a recommendation?
I recommend that we approve the 1-year contract extension.
Is there a motion to approve an additional 1-year contract with SFE as stated just a moment ago for the for the July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025 contract valued for 1 year at $2,869,391 and will be paid as normally with the
21,000.
food service funds.
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to move that we approve an addition to the one-year contract with, and this is the option, my inference is that it's the board's option to extend in addition to the three subsequent years with Southwest Chesapeake. And with the contract term being July 1, 2024 to June 30, 2025. Contract year for the contract value is $2,869,391 and the pay is
Thank you, sir. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. It has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to approve an additional 1-year contract with the option to extend an additional year for each of 3 subsequent years with SFE to manage and operate the food services program at Grant-Cibola County Schools. Contract term being July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. The contract value for year 1 is $2,869,391 and will be paid as normally with the 21,000 food service funds. Is there any discussion?
Should we, I'm sorry, should we put in with the board option? Because he had mentioned board option. We need to put that in the motion with the board option to extend an additional year.
It depends on Mr. Superintendent Whitener's determination. If the option is an implied option of the board, it goes. If it's a automatic option without the board's approval for the following year, then that's a different picture. How do you see it?
It will come to you guys every year.
Okay, thank you. As it's written.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Ashambo?
Yes.
Mrs. Hunt Daily?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, the motion carries. Finally, principals, assistant principals. You'll be happy about this one, I hope. Consideration of approval of Grants High School athletic donations in the amount of $10,350. Superintendent Weiner, is there a recommendation?
Stand up, GHS staff. Just because you've been here, this is the moment you've waited for. I recommend that we do accept the $10,350.
Is there a motion to approve the Grants High School athletic donations in the amount of $10,350?
I'll move to approve the athletic donation in the amount of $10,350.
And is there a second? I'll second. It has been moved by Mr. Ortiz and seconded by President Lee to approve the Grants High School athletic donations in the amount of $10,350. Is there any discussion?
Yes, where did that donation come from? That the way it reads is that their Grants athletic donations are donating $10,200. Or is it?
There it says.
Athletic donations.
It's under action items, Mrs. Hunt Daily.
That's what I'm reading.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah. The breakdown, say the breakdown here?
In action.
And it shows you the businesses.
This right here. Does Dr. Guy need to see that?
I didn't wanna look, I'm just too lazy. That's all.
Okay.
It's free money.
And this is for all athletic programs?
Correct.
No,
No.
I'm sorry. It's,
This is
I'm
for
sorry.
Grants High School.
Yeah,
correct?
this is for Grants High School.
No, I mean, that's what I meant,
Yeah,
for all
yeah.
athletic programs, right?
Yeah,
no,
Girls and boys, no.
no, I'm sorry. So, if I may,
Yes, please, sir.
after the state championships, the community banded together to donate money for a specific purpose for the baseball team, the boys' baseball team. We then, they approached Mr. Wagner. We talked to them extensively about sharing, the need to share some of that money with all the other Grants High School athletics. So the bulk of 90% of that donation will go towards those rings for the team. The other 10% will go to be distributed to other programs at Grants High School. So just a point of clarification, the entire $10,000 or $11,000 in there is not going to be distributed to all other programs at Grants High School athletics, just 10% of that. Does that answer your question?
And that's what's required? Or that was what, how was that determined? Could you explain again?
Yeah,
I'm
we were
sorry.
concerned about the Title IX violation where one popular sport would get so much attention and so much money. And so we proposed that and we've always done this, we've always told the coaches that any fundraising for these bigger sports, basketball, football, baseball, girls' basketball, whatever the bigger programs are, they need to share those fundraising proceeds with the smaller programs. Now, that doesn't mean that the smaller programs don't participate, they should help as well and earn that, just like everyone else. But in order to be compliant with our Title IX regulations that we treat things with equity, okay, not necessarily equally, but with equity in proportion to the size of the program. So in this case, because of the enormity of the community response, we did advise the principals that they could not accept large donations like this without sharing it with other Grants High School programs, which they agreed to do, and we agreed on 10%.
Any further discussion, board members? More questions?
And that satisfies the Title IX regulation?
It does.
This, Madam Chairman, would you, Mr. Wagner, would you elaborate on that in the future? I don't know what the policy says and I don't intend on looking it up. So as we hopefully receive future donations, that we are clear on what it is that Title IX expects of us in writing someplace so that we can just go right to that and say this is what we're gonna do. That way you'll have you have something in writing of how you're going to proceed in the future. That's my suggestion.
Yes, sir. And we're going to work with our principals, with our athletic directors, with our CTE teachers, but we wanna make sure that we keep it all.
Well, you need to have a legal review,
Yes. Yes, sir.
opinion that supports your plan.
Right, cause we just accepted one from the casino too that went to Laguna, wasn't that like $10,000 also, or what was that one?
No, that one wasn't that much. It was,
Maybe 1,000?
yeah, 1,500, I think.
You asked that same question about whether or not if all of Title IX regulations, was in the past, there was always some question about programs satisfying the Title IX. And so I remember specifically one where Mr. Hunt got one for the girls program, LBC or someone like $10,000, and they were, oh no, Acoma, $5,000. And they were told they could give it just to the girls basketball program. So maybe we had a copy of the regulation, that would suffice.
We can get
Oh,
that.
absolutely, absolutely.
Just you guys do your administrative review and provide us the advice that
I still would like a copy of the regulation. I
Mhm.
referred to it.
There is a policy, but I'm not sure specifically it is for us. So, but thank you. Madam President.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. Mrs. Sandoval, roll call, please.
Dr. Archambo?
Yes.
Mrs. Hunt Daily?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Reese?
Aye, the motion carries. Yay.
We're out.
You all are
But
great
now you-
troopers.
Now you can go have dinner.
No, breakfast.
Midnight
Yeah,
snacks.
this is like breakfast and dinner, huh?
The next one,
Well, we're doing good, huh?
President Lee, the next one is a $300 donation that is for the backpack program. We partner with the community to work with the backpack program, and so that's a $300 donation.
And
Donated by Boynton?
Boynton Laws,
Boynton.
that came from Boynton Law Office after Mr. Boynton passed away. His widow wanted to support the backpack program, so she sent us a check for that. We have sitting over here and waiting for approval.
And for our audience and members here, could you give a brief description of the backpack program?
The backpack program is, we partner with Rotary, and
They provide food,
all
I'm sorry.
put money in, they provide food for our children who don't necessarily have food at home. There's snacks, there's applesauce, there's pudding cups, there's things that the kids can take home over the weekends and have in their homes. And so it's a really great program that our community supports and we as a school district support it. And
Thank you. Very good. So is there a motion to approve the donation for the backpack program in the amount of $300 by Mrs. Boynton is
Boynton Law, a firm.
Boynton Law Firm. Thank you. I will make a motion to approve the donation by the Boynton Law Firm for the backpack program in the amount of $300. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by President Lee and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to approve the GCCS donation from the Boynton Law Firm in the amount of $300 for the backpack program. Is there any discussion, board members? All right, hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Archambo?
Yes.
Mrs. Hunt Daily?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Reese?
Aye, the motion carries. And now we're moving on to the consent agenda. There are a total of 31 bars listed. Well, the consent agenda, there's not discussion.
If we do have questions, we will just
Ask the
ask the
question.
questions. And I do have.
Questions.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
And it doesn't, they don't need to be pulled out and voted separately. It's just a clarification of what it is.
very good.
So, Madam President, Ms. Warden, Mr. Romanov? Yes, sir. I'm just gonna give you a number, and see what it is, number one, and then, number, 24 and 25.
Number one is the increase in the SEG that you were told about earlier today. Number 21,
23.
23,
No, wait a minute.
I thought,
24 and 25.
24 and 25. Those were adjustments made by the PED based on carryover cash that was adjusted after our audit was done. They made some adjustments to the 11,000 fund, and that's what they did.
Thank you.
Well, the detailed on each of these, I can look them up, but they're not part of the amount. Because they're not intended to approve one by one. I will tell you this, that a month ago or in May, you approved the ability for us to pass the bars without coming to the board so that we could make them all in time for the PED deadline, which we did. The next step after we do that, and these have already been approved by, when we enter them into OBMS, they're approved by me, then it goes to the superintendent, then it comes back to me, and I put in a date that the board approved the bar, which was May 7th. And then our obligation is to then bring these items to you. These are all fairly routine as we make adjustments at the end of the school year, not just to true up the end of the school year, but also to make sure that we have bars that going into the next school year as adjustments come in. The process that the PED goes through to approve many of our funds, if you recall, we have several dozen funds, so it takes time. Each one of the fund managers and then finally the assistant director makes adjustments based on a variety of things, and they go up and down, but it doesn't necessarily affect our overall budget. It's still at, the last time you remember, I brought the budget without the SCG was $122 million. They made some adjustments here and there based on the different capital funds, things like that. We got some more money in capital, for example, than we budgeted. We had to make those adjustments in order to make the budget balance. And so we're sitting right around $121 million or so for the next school year. That's what these adjustments reflect. They're quite detailed.
I do have some quick, I'm not going to explain that, that's fine. I do remember, maybe last year we talked about the consent agenda. And I know we had voted to approve without really looking at it until we started seeing some items that were questionable, like the amount that was going to TLC and all that stuff. And so there was discussion on whether or not we should have a look, not just, let's see, openly, blanketly approve them, but to, then we had discussion to bring those up during the time they were presented. This is a good time to do that. So I had 8, 9, and 10, the title 7, Indian education, the impact A, special education, the impact A, education at 8, 9, and 10. And I had 22, 23, increase. And now that I know it's that count number, 22,11,00, 20, that's 22, 23 was the increase in Indian education.
Which number are you referring to?
22 and 23 on the next page.
22 is the universal free lunch.
Yes.
That was an increase provided by an additional allocation by the state as a pass-through from the federal government. Number 23
Yes.
was an increase in fund number 25115. I don't know the number offhand. I'm sorry?
Title 6.
Yeah, Title 6 change there. I don't know exactly the number. Many of these increases are not substantial. You're talking a couple of $100 in some cases, and you're talking.
I apologize, Mr. Mulligan. We've already approved these back in
May 7th.
So in other words, we're not in a position of approving this school. I think, so, what I asked was just clarification for you, is that all you're doing?
Yes.
Seeking? So that's, I think, that would be the limits to what she's asking.
So I will clarify for you that last year, when we also had that resolution to be able to make the bar approval without coming to the board at the very end of the year, because there's, as you can see, there were 31. And so we did that last year. What we missed was bringing this back to the board to review the actual bars themselves, and we did get an audit finding for that. So now we're cleaning that up because we did do the bars as appropriated and as appropriate to balance not just last year's budget, but this year's budget. And now, because you had already approved them through that resolution, now we're just bringing the items for you to look at. I'm happy to provide you with some of these details if you want to send Mr. Widener an email asking for these particular bar numbers. I'm happy to send you the detail on what was increased and what was decreased and why. But I have not committed all of these to memory.
Yeah, and that's what I meant, is that board member Bailey, that we can get, if you seek that, it would be.
You can get the detail, absolutely. Yes, not a problem at all.
But we basically are affirming that this is the listing that we had approved.
That's correct.
And that's
That
fine.
makes sense.
Yeah, I guess it's good that we asked these questions because then it became an audit item, it wasn't necessarily the board. So it's good that it's brought before the board. And this, like, Dr. Harold said, this clarification of what it is. The last one was 28 persons.
Carl Perkins is a transfer budget amount that was transferring between different sub-funds within the Carl Perkins grant.
All right, Superintendent Widener, is there a recommendation for approval of the consent agenda as listed, including the June 2024 bars?
I recommend that we do accept the consent agenda items through 31.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. It has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Ms. Hunt Daly to approve the consent agenda as listed, including the 31 June 2024 bars. We shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Ashambo?
Yes.
Ms. Hunt Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Hadamio?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye. The motion carries. Mr. Widener, announcements.
President Lee, I do have a few announcements. July 4th and 5th, the district will be closed in honor of Independence Day, the 4th of July holiday. July 11th through 13th, the NMSBA Leadership Retreat will be happening in Taos. If you're interested in going to that, please reach out and let Lorraine know, and she'll help you with travel for that. You get hours there, so.
And the new rules is that we have to have 10 hours of training.
Yeah, so they do workshops, and so you would,
It is not mandatory.
you could acquire, it's
just
not,
recommended.
and there's other opportunities in the fall.
Okay, so it'll be the same thing in the fall.
Yeah, the December one.
And in about 3.5 weeks, we'll have our next regular school board meeting. It'll be the July 16th school board meeting, and then we'll start our new year. And then the GCCS Leadership Summit plans are on the way, plans are happening. It's gonna happen at the Embassy Suites Hotel in Albuquerque, July 22nd through 24th, 2024. And that's all of the announcements I have. I'll move to future agenda items. I did write down here that we did table some items tonight, and so we will probably want to revisit those or come back to those. So I did write those items down.
And I would encourage board members to email Mr. Widener and myself the requests for future agenda items. All right, Superintendent Weiner, is there a recommendation for the meeting to be adjourned?
I recommend that we adjourn the meeting.
Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? Is there a second? Thank you. It has been moved by Ms. Hunt Daly and seconded by Mr. Ortiz to adjourn the meeting. Mrs. Sandoval, roll call please.
Dr. Guyer Shambo?
Yes.
Mrs. Hunt Daly? Yes. Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, the motion carries. The board adjourned at 8:47 p.m.
Did you figure out who's getting the belt?
When?
I did. Well, when I saw you standing by her, I thought maybe.
And I thought, that sounds like me.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And you even missed the last school board meeting.